Vishakhānvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langhyaite girim. Yat kripatamaham mande, Shri Guru Dina Taranam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. All right. So today we are going to talk about Lochan Das Thakur. So, as we all know that the appearance and the disappearance of these all great souls, great acharyas, they're equally honored. Why? Because when they are living, they live the life which is full of Krishna consciousness. And when they leave, they unite with the Supreme Lord. So there is nothing to lament about it. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, he reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die. When thou art living still in sound, the Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy name around. So today, actually, it is said that the fruit of hearing about a devotee, devotee Bhagavad, is much more than hearing about the book Bhagavad, the Granth Bhagavad. Why? Because in the Bhagavatam, the book, the Granth Bhagavad, there is a description of the character of the Lord and his devotees and the relationship between the two. So it is very, very auspicious to hear that. But more pleasing is to hear about the devotee of the Lord, to the Lord himself. So it is very pleasing to the Lord to hear about the glories of his devotee than about his own glories from the devotee. So he himself has actually said so many times in so many shastras at different places that I am Ajit. Jeet means conquered. Ajit, the one who cannot be conquered. So he's saying, I'm Ajit. Nobody can win over me, but I can be won over with devotion of my devotees. So by hearing about such great personalities, we get bhakti, and at the same time, we get the inspiration, enthusiasm, and the power to serve their beloved Lord. Now, Lochan Das Thakur is one such eternal associate of Mahaprabhu. So, since Mahaprabhu is the combination of Radha and Krishna, as we all know, so any of his eternal associates, they are basically Vrajajan. That means they belong to Vrajadham. So Lochan Das Thakur also, in his past life, he was a Sakhi in Vraja. And in that role, as a Sakhi, the role that he was playing then in Vraja, the role that was played by him was to make sure that Radha and Krishna, they get to associate with each other. And so in Gaur Leela, Lochan Das Thakur, the Sakhi, appear as Lochan Das Thakur in a village, near in Navadvip, in Bardhaman district, in Katwa village. There's a place called Kogram. He appeared there. To who? His father's name was Kamlakar Das and mother was Sadanandani. Okay. And he was the only child. Now, interesting part was, he was the only child in the entire clan, be it maternal or paternal. So from his mother's side also, he was the only child. From his father's child also, he was the only child. So one child in the big family, okay, of adults. So we can imagine how much pampered he was. He was so pampered. He was so dearly loved. And actually, to the extent, actually in those days, Bala Vivah, childhood marriage was prevalent. So his grandparents at both the sides were all the more eager because he was the only child, the only grandchild in both the families. They really wanted him to get married. And so because they were eager for the ceremony, obviously, when in the child marriage, it's not that once they get married, the husband and the wife, they start living together right away because they're very young. They're like 4 5 years old. But then it's just a custom, a ceremony. They did that to make sure when they grow up, they knew who their partners would be. And with time, they would start living together. So this was done at a very early age for Lochan Das Thakur. So now the issue was, excuse me, please, I have my really bad throat. But anyway, so now the issue was with so much of love, so much of pampering, Lochan Das Thakur didn't want to study. Who would want to study when there are grandparents to spoil you to the core? No child likes to study, but it is good for them. So his parents, they got worried that, the grandparents and everybody else, both in the maternal side and the paternal side, they both were pampering him so much that he didn't find a reason to show any kind of interest in studies. So then, for that particular reason, he ended up staying most of his life in his maternal home. Why? Because there he had an uncle, maternal uncle, that means mama, mother's brother, by the name of Purushottam Dutt. And he, by profession, was a teacher. So they were all worried, if he goes to school, because he was such a pampered child. So everybody in the household, all the elderly people, all the uncles and aunts, and the grandparents, both the sides, were worried that if he goes to school, the teacher is going to scold him. And if the teacher is going to scold him, he loses interest in studies because of the pampering. Not that the teacher's scolding is going to make one lose interest in studies. If the teacher is scolding in the right manner, for the right reason, it can have the reverse effect and the student can really shine. But they were so worried about him and he was so pampered that they thought it's better if he stays with his uncle. And there, he'll learn something from his mama. Actually, even Srila Prabhupada writes in the scriptures that from 0 to 5 years of age, the child should be pampered. From 6 to 15, he should be scolded because those are the formative years of a child. And if he's doing something wrong, he needs to be checked. And beyond that, 16 onwards, you're supposed to treat the child as a friend. But he was pampered all along. And then he was basically homeschooled. So he was homeschooled, and obviously by his uncle, who was a teacher, Purushottam Dutt. He had this uncle, Purushottam Dutt, he had great affection for Mahaprabhu. So to hear the Gaur Leela, he would go to another associate of Mahaprabhu by the name of Narhari Sarkar. Along with his Mamaji, he would also tag along, So Purushottam Dutt was very keen to know about Gaur Leela from Narhari Sarkar, but this little boy, our dear Lochan Das Thakur, when he was a boy, when he tagged along to Narhari Sarkar's place, just in few meetings, he was so attracted, so immensely attracted to Narhari Sarkar. He could feel that connection. Even Narhari Sarkar could feel the connection because you see, Narhari Sarkar was also eternal associate of the Lord. So both of them being the eternal associates of Mahaprabhu, they could feel the connection. So now this boy didn't want to go back. He wanted to stay back with Narhari Sarkar because he was pampered. And if he would cry, the family would do anything to make sure that he doesn't cry. Now, whenever he was asked to go back, he would start crying. He didn't want to leave the association of Narhari Sarkar. So then his parents, everybody in the family thought it's okay. Where will he go? He'll just learn something nice from Narhari Sarkar. If that is what is making him happy, so be it. Let him go and live there. So he started living at Narhari Sarkar Thakur's place. And there, his family would come and visit him once in a while. There he learned a lot. Now, Narhari Sarkar had a brother who was a doctor, Mukunda Das. So Narhari Sarkar, he was the older one, and they both didn't want to get married. But one day, Mahaprabhu asked Mukunda Das that go get married. And he was like, how can I get married? My older brother is not married yet. Mahaprabhu, being the super soul in everybody's heart, he said he is not going to get married. Don't worry. You go and get married. So he said, but I don't want to get married. So he said, it's okay. I'll come as a child. Now, this was obviously such a big bribe. Anybody would do, to have Mahaprabhu as your child. Anybody would agree to get married. So did Mukunda Das. And then he had a son, Raghunandan Thakur, who had the character traits of Mahaprabhu, right? Then what happened? This child, Raghunandan Thakur, his teacher was also Narhari Sarkar. So Narhari Sarkar's actual service was to offer chamar, to the Lord. Anyway, so Narhari Thakur, he used to think that Mahaprabhu's Leela should be spread far and wide. And many scholars had done that, but they had done in Sanskrit language. So Narhari Sarkar was thinking that not everybody knows Sanskrit. We need to spread this message in our local language. But he was not a kavi, He was not good at writing. He tried to come up with some padavalis, but because he was not a kavi, he was not happy. He himself was not happy. And when Lochan Das Thakur started living with him, so he gave those instructions because he understood Lochan Das Thakur. The teacher knows all your plus and minus things. So Lochan Das Thakur, he gave this instruction to Lochan Das Thakur. And for Lochan Das Thakur, the desire of his guru became the instruction. He said, okay, I'm going to do it. So he started writing granths, and the most famous one was Chaitanya Mangal. Now, to write about Mahaprabhu, obviously he had to study various scriptures. He had heard some from his guru, and rest he read from Murari Gupta's Chaitanya Charitamrita Mahakavya. So he read this, and this Chaitanya Charitamrita Mahakavya that is in Sanskrit. So that shows that he had knowledge, right? Because he was trying to write in his local language, but he had to read from Sanskrit books. So he read, and he then translated into his local language. What was his local language? Panchali Chand. Now, then at that time, Vrindavan Das Thakur had also written Chaitanya Mangal. Lochan Das Thakur was writing Chaitanya Mangal, and Vrindavan Das Thakur had already written the book named Chaitanya Mangal. So now, Lochan Das Thakur was sent by Narhari Thakur to Vrindavan Das Thakur to seek his permission to continue writing, because it's the same book now. Two authors cannot have same book, right? So then he took a handwritten sample to him, to Vrindavan Das Thakur. Okay, Lochan Das Thakur. And who is Vrindavan? Vrindavan Das Thakur is none other than Vyasadeva of Mahaprabhu's pastimes, right? So he generally, generally it is a human nature that if I'm trying to write something and if somebody else does the same, I'm not happy about it. So Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote Chaitanya Mangal. So did Lochan Das Thakur. When Lochan Das Thakur took a copy, handwritten copy, to be read by Vrindavan Das Thakur, Vrindavan Das Thakur did not get upset. He actually welcomed him and he started reading. So Vrindavan Das Thakur was surrendered to Nityananda Prabhu. And in the introduction itself, Lochan Das Thakur wrote that I offer my obeisances to Nityananda Prabhu, who's non-different from Mahaprabhu and is an Avadut, and who is none other than the Rohini Nandan. When he read this, Vrindavan Das Thakur became unconscious. He was so surrendered to Nityanand Prabhu, and when he came back to consciousness, he embraced Lochan Das Thakur. And he said, your book is to be published. And then he wrote a letter to all the scholars in Navadvip saying that please change the name of my book from Chaitanya Mangal to Chaitanya Bhagwat. Because what I have written in Chaitanya Bhagwat is all about the opulence of the Lord, Bhagavata of the Lord. The real lecture is in Chaitanya Mangal, and that is going to be Lochan Das Thakur's book. So there are actually three main scriptures about Mahaprabhu: Chaitanya Bhagwat, Chaitanya Mangal, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Bhagwat was written by Vrindavan Das Thakur. Chaitanya Mangal, now we're reading, is written by Lochan Das Thakur. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says that I eat the remnants of Vrindavan Das Thakur. Whereas Lochan Das Thakur, what he wrote was actually little different from them. So Chaitanya Bhagwat is all about the greatness of the Lord, Bhagavata, Bhagavad. It's all about the greatness, opulence of the Lord. So it's kind of, Lord in the Vaikuntapati role. Okay. Chaitanya Charitamrita tells about the Madhurya Bhav of Mahaprabhu, as a Rasaraj, versus Chaitanya Mangal, which Lochan Das Thakur wrote, that talks about the Shringar Ras of Mahaprabhu, that is the Rasik Tattva, So Lochan Das Thakur, after he got permission, from Vrindavan Das Thakur, he started writing in the local language. So now, now he was in his late teens, 16, 17, 18, like that, So now, one time, Narhari Thakur, he found out that Lochan Das Thakur is married. And he was not aware of it, so he was kind of shocked and he could not talk much about it. When he asked Lochan Das Thakur could not say anything because he was very, very young, So he said, when I was little, I heard that this happened, but I don't know much about what happened. Now, Lochan Das Thakur, he was all grown up, as we read, in his late teens. So, obviously, was the girl who he was married to. Now it came the time for the girl to be, sent to her in-laws' place. So they found out that Lochan Das Thakur, the girl's side, they found out that Lochan Das Thakur was not in the house, but with his guru. So they sent a messenger, who was very good in talking, and they sent that messenger to Narhari Thakur, who convinced him to send Lochan Das Thakur back to his wife. So Narhari Das Thakur, he agreed, and he asked Lochan Das Thakur to do the needful. So now, a person who's developed the taste for the devotion of Lord, devotion to the Lord, who's in a Rasik Bhav, he cannot develop taste for material pleasures. So Lochan Das Thakur, he had no desire to go. But Narhari Thakur kept saying, and Lochan Das Thakur kept delaying. Now it came to a point where actually Narhari Das Thakur, he scolded Lochan Das Thakur. Narhari Sarkar, he scolded Lochan Das Thakur, and he said, you better go and bring your wife to your house. Otherwise, they're going to send your wife to my ashram. Where am I going to keep her? How are we going to afford her? This is not a place for a woman. Please go and perform your grahastha ashram nicely. So now Lochan Das Thakur, he was not happy, but coming from the guru, what could he do? So he said, he left with tears in his eyes. He said, I don't have any desire to go, but you're sending me. So Narhari Sarkar Thakur said that you pray to Mahaprabhu and he will protect you. Go, do not worry. So then he left, and he had never been to his in-laws' place. So the messenger had given the address to him. So he reached there somehow. There was a lake and he took bath. So there was a woman in the lake also who was present there. So he asked her, Mataji, can you tell me this address? So she said, for what? What do you need this address for? So he said, I want to meet this family, I have some work. She said, okay, come with me, come behind me. I'm going there. Who was she? She was actually his wife. So, following her, they reached the house. And she told her dad that so and so person, he wants to see you. And the person did not recognize because that means his father in law. When he saw Lochan Thakur during Bal Viva, he was very little. You know how we change. When you grow up, you completely change, right? You don't have the same body. So he was not able to recognize his own son-in-law. And then when Lochan Thakur told him that he's coming from Narhari Sarkar's place, and that's when he understood, oh, this is a son-in-law. So he called for his daughter and his wife, and they both were shocked because he had already addressed his wife as Mataji. He told her, Mataji, where is this place? Can you tell me? So, but then what? They were married. So father sent the daughter, with Lochan Thakur. And Lochan Thakur explained everything to her. And she agreed. She agreed just to serve and help him. So they went home. Everybody was happy to see the son and daughter-in-law together. They lived together, but they lived together just because they were living in the same house. They were not living as husband and wife because he was always a brahmachari and she only used to help him do, edit his work, serve him because she was educated. So then he told her that I want to go back to Narhari Sarkar, and she agreed. She said, okay, if that's what you want, so be it. So then when he met Narhari Sarkar asked him, what happened? What happened to your wife? So he narrated the whole pastime. He explained everything to him. And then Narhari Sarkar said, Mahaprabhu saved you. And then he wrote Chaitanya Mangal. Then he took it to Vrindavan Das Thakur, who then read, and he found out that. So earlier, he had read only the introduction, where the mention of Nityanand Prabhu was very overwhelming for him and he got unconscious. Now he read the whole of it and he found certain sections where which were not even described by Krishnadas Kaviraj, right? And that was what particular section was it? It was when Mahaprabhu took sannyas. So at that time, the conversation that he had with Vishnu Priya, his wife, Mahaprabhu's wife, Vishnu Priya, that conversation he had written in Chaitanya Mangal. So Mahaprabhu at that time, he showed his Chaturbhuj form to Vishnu Priya and read Bhagavad Gita to her. And Vrindavan Das Thakur was like, how does he know all this? So Vrindavan Das actually went to his mother, Narayani Devi, who was very aged by then. But then he asked her, do you know any of this? So she said, yeah, what all he's written is true. Why? Because Vishnu Priya had told Narayani Devi this herself. So she had, now Vishnu Priya had taken very strong vows, that time. Ishan Thakur used to just get the water for her to take bath, and she had made a vigraha, a murti of Mahaprabhu, and she would sit in front of that vigraha and chant her rounds. For every round that she would chant, she would accept only 1 grain of rice. So towards the end of the day, say if she did 64 rounds, I mean, she did much more. So only 64 grains of rice she would honor that day. So as many rounds she did, she would cook only that many number of grains of rice. That's how pakka and strict she was, in her vows. And if no rounds done, then you can understand one would go hungry. So she didn't have time at all because she was always busy chanting. So before she took this strict vow, she had told this to Narayani Devi, who was then older than her. And seeing the pain of Vishnu Priya that time when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, all the Navadvip Vasis, they would not leave the side of Vishnu Priya and Sachi Mata. And Narayani Devi, she also went to console, and she also went to console and meet them. And that's when Vishnu Priya, crying, told her what all had happened. So now when Vrindavan Das Thakur got the confirmation and he went back from Narayani Devi, so he went back and he hugged Lochan Das Thakur, who then went to Narhari Sarkar and who then asked him to take a copy to Vishnu Priya Devi. Okay. So now again, Lochan Das Thakur, he went with another copy to Vishnu Priya Devi, and she, the caretaker there, he came and got him the blessings. He went and he told Vishnu Priya that he wants the blessings. By then, Vishnu Priya Devi, she had become very, very powerful. Obviously, you can imagine the kind of japa she was doing for so many years and accepting just one grain of rice for every round she did. So we can understand that how powerful she had become, by the dint of her chanting. Then she came out and she blessed him, not once, not twice, 3 times. He got blessings 3 times, and she asked him to publish it. So like this, Chaitanya Mangal was published. So anyway, so this Viraha Leela, this pastime of separation of Mahaprabhu and Vishnu Priya was captured and was written in Chaitanya Mangal by Lochan Das Thakur, who had received the mercy of Narhari Das Thakur. So we should seek blessings from such acharyas. We should pray to such great souls that we should also get absorbed in the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. We should bless them. We should ask them to bless us to be in Gaura consciousness too, just like them. If we get even little bit of, just iota of the affection and devotion they had for Mahaprabhu, our life will be successful. So at this note, I would like to end the class. If anybody has any questions, then we can take. Just I have a little sore throat, so it will be a little challenging for me to keep going on. So, but if you have any questions, we can take that.
Mataji, I have one question.
Yes.
Who was Lochan Das Thakur's teacher again?
Narhari Sarkar Thakur.
Okay, and he was also an intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Narhari Thakur saw Lochan Das Thakur for the first time, both being eternal associates of the Lord, could feel that connection. That is why Lochan Das Thakur was not ready to leave the ashram of Narhari Thakur.
Okay, Mataji, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody has anything to say?
Mataji, I have a question.
Yes, baby.
Lochan Das Thakur wrote the Chaitanya Mangal, right?
Yes.
Then who wrote the Chaitanya Bhagavat again?
So Chaitanya Bhagavat was Vrindavan Das Thakur. Earlier, his book was named Chaitanya Mangal, but because he read about Chaitanya, he read the Chaitanya Mangal that Lochan Das Thakur had written. So he was more than willing to change the name of his book from Chaitanya Mangal to Chaitanya Bhagavat, because he realized that the nectarian pastimes are in Mangal, and in Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is all about the greatness of the Lord.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody has anything else? All right, so I think we'll stop here and we will resume next Wednesday. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
All right.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji.
Mataji, thank you.
Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Bye.
Hari Bol.
Nyanmanjari ki jai.
Yeah. Bye.